Is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am strongly opposed to H.J. Res. 142, which would repeal provisions of a law enacted by the District of Columbia because D.C. deserves the right to govern itself. The Supreme Court has held that Congress can delegate full legislative authority to D.C. for local matters, but Republicans in Congress choose not to do so. Last year, President Trump and congressional Republicans passed the One Big Betrayal bill, a deeply unpopular law that is the single largest transfer of wealth and resources from the working class and the working poor to the ultra-wealthy billionaires and corporations in our nation's history. The law ripped health care coverage away from millions of Americans to give tax breaks and tax giveaways to billionaires and megacorporations. Not only that, but for states across the country, it has caused a revenue shortfall that has thrown state budgets into chaos, threatening services like health care, child care, schools, elder care, and emergency response. To protect against this, numerous states have passed laws to decouple their tax code from the tax provisions in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill Act. This includes states like Maine, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Colorado, and Alabama. This also includes the District of Columbia. To avoid more than $600 million budget loss over the next 4 years from the Big Betrayal Bill tax changes, the D.C. Council enacted a decoupling law. As a part of this law, D.C. increased the child tax credit and earned income tax credit benefits to put more money in the pockets of working families struggling to afford the basic necessities in their life. H.J. Res. 142 would overturn this law and rip away the money that parents and low-earning families could use to stay afloat in this disastrous Trump economy. Today is just another day in Congress where instead of being here on the floor debating legislation on health care, instead of debating legislation on bringing down the cost of groceries, instead of debating legislation on making sure we can make this country more affordable for working people, congressional Republicans want to use this time to attack working families in the District of Columbia. Overturning this law will create chaos for D.C. families and businesses at the start of tax filing season. The gentleman brought up businesses, but D.C. began accepting and processing tax returns on January 27th. Families are already beginning to file their taxes and claim the newly expanded EITC. This resolution would force D.C. to suspend this year's tax filing season, which is already underway, for several months. Changing their tax code now would create additional hurdles and confusion for families and, yes, for local businesses as well, especially families that are already counting on receiving that larger earned income tax credit to deal with the failure of congressional Republicans and Donald Trump to bring this economy to a place that works for working people. The D.C. business community even sent a letter to Congress urging opposition to this disapproval resolution because it would create chaos and financial instability. This group includes the Federal City Council, the D.C. Chamber of Commerce, the D.C. Association of Realtors, the D.C. Hospital Association, and the Hotel Association of Washington, D.C., all opposed to this resolution. The Big Betrayal Act is so deeply unpopular that half of the public believes it'll hurt them and their families, including 2/3 of Medicaid enrollees. Instead of accepting this reality, congressional Republicans are disregarding home rule and forcing it down the throats of D.C. because they can. You know, I find it also very interesting and kind of cool that today I get to debate with a colleague from the other side of the aisle. We're both the youngest members of the United States Congress. We may be the youngest, but his ideas are very old. Undermining democracy in D.C. isn't new. It's just wrong. The people who live in the capital of the world's greatest democracy deserve that democracy themselves. I reserve.